Okay, so I already asked Sir Hintalan whether we should already start without him, but um, just to prepare, let me just share my screen first. Okay, here's my presentation. Let's start. So this is going to be an introduction to computer graphics, and for the purpose of this video, which by the way, I'm recording this presentation. I'll be speaking in English, and then you can ask any questions anytime you want through the chat box or by opening your mic. So this is an introduction to computer graphics. First, let's have the table of contents. We have 5 topics to discuss. Firstly, the definition and background. Second is the types and applications of computer graphics, the software used, hardware requirements and other peripherals, and examples and demonstration of 2D and 3 and video graphics and how to manipulate pixels. So, first topic is the definition and background of computer graphics with regards to computer science. Here is an image of procedurally generated graphics with scripting. So normally you could generate these types of images with programming languages like Python, among others, because there is a feature known as turtle graphics in Python. But anyway, let's focus on the definition. In simple terms, computer graphics in computer science is the generation of images with computers. So basically, you're making artificial images with computers. It is used in digital photography, film, video games, cell phone, and computer displays, among a plethora of others. And the term was invented by Vern Hudson and William Fetter of Boeing. And if you're not familiar with Boeing, it is a aircraft company. In fact, it is probably one of the most popular aircraft companies out there that produce airplanes like the Boeing 707, if I'm not mistaken. It is abbreviated as CG or computer graphics. Alternatively, you can call it CGI, but it is specifically for the context of filmography, wherein the I stands for imagery, and it also implies that you're going to be using three-dimensional graphics there. Lastly, for this pointer, its non-artistic aspects are under computer science research, and that basically means that there are computer scientists and programmers that specifically specialize their profession in researching how to create new programs, how to render images in three-dimensional space, because that is a very complex topic. So let's have a list of its more applications. So this list I just copied out of Wikipedia, but I'll do my best to explain each of them. So first, user interface design. User interface, just like we have discussed for some of us perhaps that have underwent what was that subject called again? Uh, Human computer interaction with Sir Noel. We have designed UIs or user interfaces for them to be visually appealing and easy to use. Second, we have sprite graphics, which are typically used for game programming. Let me just bring up an example of that. Sprites. So by a simple Google search, let me share a window. You will see some sprites. Okay, so these are examples of sprites, and you can use them in games. In fact, this one is actually from the Game Boy Advance game, Pokemon Emerald, if I'm not mistaken. And it's all about these little pixels that seem to have different movements or frames for them. But so much for that. Let me go back to the main presentation. Okay, let's try to go through this a little bit faster. If I could actually find that window, let me just look for a second. Okay, there it is. So rendering. We have another participant. Anyway, rendering. Rendering means we are going to finalize the image or video that we just created. For example, in video editing, we have the rendering process committed by, for example, Adobe Premiere Pro into another program like Encoder, Adobe Media Encoder, if there are any video editors out there. So rendering finalizes the image we created. Ray tracing is another very complicated subject which we will not go into depth in this video for now, but ray tracing is something that deals with light and um, how it bounces off objects, and you could represent it very realistically in computers. Geometry processing is just something that I showed you a while back, just like this one. That's geometry processing, and it's essentially something that you program to create these images. And computer animation, self-explanatory. Vector graphics is distinct from raster graphics. If there are any editors out there of photos, if you've ever used Photoshop, that's a raster graphics software. Now, vector graphics deals with mathematical expressions to describe images. So if you zoom in and zoom out of these images, you will not notice any pixelation because it is based on math. 3D modeling, shaders, GPU design. Now, 3D modeling is another topic we'll be discussing later. Implicit surfaces, I have no idea what that is, honestly, but visualization is used for things like architecture, for example, or making cars in 3D to visualize what they will look like when you actually fabricate them. 13, scientific computing. Yep. Image processing, computational photography, scientific visualization, just like in data science and data analysis, or maybe in just more or simpler applications like when you create presentations in Microsoft PowerPoint. That's also something that can be visualized. For example, if you create pie graphs or bar charts, that's visualization. Computational geometry and computer vision. Now, computer vision is quite an interesting subject. If you attach a camera into, for example, there are actually applications that use vision. For example, let's say you have virtual reality and augmented reality. Who here has ever played Pokemon Go? Has anyone played Pokemon Go? Just type yes in the chat box or something. That is actually an example of augmented reality. Thanks for the response, Kuya John. So, augmented reality is something that integrates real life video or images with visual or artificial images like the Pokemon themselves in that context. For the second topic, we have the types and applications of computer graphics. We will be discussing the general categories of computer graphics and its practical examples. Before that, though, if you have anything that you're confused about, if I'm talking too quickly, just let me know. Because, but we're running on limited time though, so I'm trying to save time for the demonstration. Just type your questions in the chat box if you have any. The types and applications. Let's have the first slide. Film editing. So let me start with film editing. Because before we discuss programs like Adobe Premiere Pro or Filmora, which might be a little bit more familiar to you guys because it's free, we had film editing, which I guess is linear editing because the modern type of editing nowadays is non-linear editing. I'll explain why in a second. Film editing is an old standard. It uses silver halide crystals, which is just a sensitive substance that when you expose to light, it will actually react, and then you will end up with an image, a negative actually. So you will still have to invert the colors after. And it is still used by some people today, like Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino, because of how the film grain looks like for its stylistic um, effects. Now, digital and NLE. Digital and nonlinear editing is distinct from film because it uses pixels rather than the actual physical film or crystals. So nonlinear editing it provides more efficient and convenient workflows, which is why some cinematographers question why other cinematographers or directors prefer film over digital because it's very difficult to work with. 2D raster graphics. Just like, as I said earlier, 2D raster graphics may be manipulated with programs like Photoshop or GIMP, and they are based on pixels rather than lines that are based on mathematical expressions. Now that term is quite highfalutin, but mathematical expressions, if you've ever discussed algebra, which I'm sure you have, you would have heard about parabolas, which is a mathematical expression. Parabola. A parabola is a curve that is based on a an equation that is of degree 2. So so much for that. We have 2D vector graphics next. And this is different from raster graphics in a way that it doesn't deal with pixels, just like I said earlier. They deal with curves. And in fact, if you see these little handles right here, these are actually handles for Bezier curves, which is named after a French mathematician, if I'm not mistaken. So these Bezier curves makes it easier for us to create curves like that. 2D animations. There are two types of 2D animations, namely tween animation and frame by frame animation. Okay, so let's see if anybody has used any programs to, um, for example, direct an object to move from one place to another. Like you could actually do that in Canva, also in Microsoft PowerPoint, but some more complicated programs that could actually use that to its fullest potential is After Effects. Next is 3D animations. It is a tedious workflow of modeling, rigging, texturing, animating, and rendering. And if you don't know any of that, don't worry because we're going to be talking about that a little bit more later. So yeah, that's about it for the types of or categories of computer graphics, at least as far as I'm aware of. So let's have some examples of each type of computer graphics. Firstly, we have film. Just like I said earlier, um, these are the two people that are here that prefer film over digital videography or filmography. The one to the left is Quentin Tarantino. The one to the right is Christopher Nolan. Now, film was arguably invented by Louis Le Prince, which is a Frenchman, and he's credited to be the father of cinematography. He captured the first motion picture 7 years before Lumiere brothers, or the Lumiere brothers, who are widely referred to as the inventors of this, but that seems to be a misinterpretation because Louis Le Prince here preceded that by 7 years. Now he makes use of tiny sensitive silver halide crystals, which of course is just film, which we talked about earlier. And that's it for film. Some work of Quentin Tarantino includes Pulp Fiction, Django Unchained, and Kill Bill. And if any of you have watched Inception or Interstellar, Those are pretty good films in my opinion. And of course, the Batman series like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, and the software used. So the collection of logos here that I've uh, created here is actually quite overwhelming at first glance, but let's tackle them each one by one according to their applications. Firstly, the application of nonlinear editing programs. Let's have anybody who wants to talk about or uh, let's hear from anybody who has ever used Filmora or anything. Just type in the chat box. So nice. So one of our classmates here has used Filmora, maybe Premiere Pro, and so from top to right, top to bottom, left to right, these are Filmora, Avid Media Composer, Final Cut Pro, Adobe Premiere Pro, and DaVinci Resolve. So, without looking at any notes, just from the top of my head, Filmora is a relatively easier program, but it is quite powerful because you could edit videos and audio just like as you would with any of these other programs. But Avid Media Composer here to the right of that Filmora logo is the what is called the industry standard, meaning you will have the best chances of getting employed in Hollywood or big budget productions like in GMA or ABS-CBN if you use Avid Media Composer rather than Adobe Premiere Pro. And Adobe Premiere Pro on the lower left section here is actually the most popular among indie film creators such as myself, which I use just from hobby. And then to the upper right is Final Cut Pro. So you would be using that if you use any of Apple's products like the Macintosh or Mac or Airbooks. And then lastly, to the lower right, uh, a little bit in the middle is DaVinci Resolve. That is usually used in color grading, but it could actually function just identically or similarly to Filmora. Okay, so that's it for Annalise. So don't worry about any of what I said because you could just rewind that in the video or recording I'm going to share later of this presentation. Now, we have 2D, raster, and vector graphics. Now, the reason I consolidated these two, despite their differences, is because there aren't too many graphical image processing programs out there that are very popular and reliable, such as Photoshop here. So I'm sure most of us have used Photoshop already, just as we have discussed in Sir Patrick Tabia's subject, which is related to computer graphics, where we actually created the Windows logo. And some alternatives to that is GIMP, which is a free alternative, and Corel Draw, I think that's also free. And Adobe Illustrator is the most common example for vector graphics. Vector graphics. So let me bring up some images of vector graphics so you wouldn't be so confused of what that is. Let me present another window. Okay, so can you see the images up on my screen? Right. So to the left is raster graphics. As you can see, it's very pixelated, and that typically happens when you actually zoom in on the image, which doesn't happen in vector graphics because it's based on lines that are defined by math. So it's very precise. No matter how much you zoom in, it will not deteriorate. So let's search for some examples of SVG files. We just admit Kuya Cyrus here. So, and to see some Vector graphics, you just type SVG, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. That is the file type of vector graphics. So for example, we want an SVG of Pikachu, so we could put it on our website. You literally just search for it like that, open it in a new image. So that's a lie. That's actually raster graphics, because if you could notice, if you zoom in, it pixelates, and the blurry line toward the end or the edge of this thing is actually called anti-aliasing. So you blur the lines instead of having sharp edges. It's called anti-aliasing. That's also used in games, actually. So I think this is a PNG file. Right, it is a PNG file because it has an alpha matte, which basically means it has a transparent background. So that's a PNG file. Let's look for some SVGs in a website, perhaps. So I'm guessing any one of these is going to be an SVG. Actually, let me search for my having SVG files here. So anyway, that's the difference between or raster and vector. Let me go back to the main presentation. Where's our main presentation? I'm sorry for the background noise, but I just lost my main presentation. Wait for a second. Present. All right, we're back with our main presentation. Where is it? Okay, so where were we? We were about to discuss the different software used. So that's the difference between raster and vector graphics. So at least you've learned that, and those are the different software that you may use. Now, if we're going to get a little bit more complicated, if you truly wanted to pursue this hobby or even a professional career in this line of work, you would be using software such as the logos indicated in the screen in front of you. So I've actually done quite a bit of research before, so I'm already familiar with some of these. The first one to the upper left is Foundry Nuke, which is a compositing program. A compositing program is something that you use to layer different videos or images in front of each other. And it could also be used for visual effects like explosions and um, color grading, uh, making things more cohesive, as if they're all in the same scene, even though they're completely different elements. To the right of that is Autodesk Maya, which is a popular 3D animating program. It is used by various companies. I'm pretty sure Pixar Studios, or at least some of their employees use that program, but Pixar Studios might use a contemporary, or what do you call that? Their own program for using or animating 3D programs. Anyway, that was used in the Avatar, the Blue People films, and After Effects, which might be a little bit more familiar to all of us, is a 2D animating program. It could also be used in 3D, but you would need an extension. The only 3D that functionality that it will have without extensions is artificial three dimensionality with 2D planes, which I will be showing later on. 3ds Max to the lower left is used for architectural visualizations. To the right of that is perhaps the most popular program among them all because it is completely free. You could download it right now in blender.com, if I'm not mistaken. Let me actually just check. Nope. That redirects to a website that shows literal blenders, not the program. So just search Blender instead, and blender.org will lead you there. Okay, go back to the presentation. Now, to the right of that is Houdini. Now, Houdini is used for very advanced visual effects such as explosions and crumbling buildings and anything that explodes with particles like particle simulations. Yeah, a lot of those things. Hardware. Now, this is where you'll have to put your money where your mouth is. Because in hardware, you're going to be needing at least a CPU, which we all have, regardless if you're using a mobile or a PC right at the moment. Because your mobiles have MediaTek or Snapdragon processors, while our PCs typically use or utilize Intel or AMD processors. Now, the Intel processor you see on screen right now is a Core i7 processor, and the Quadro um, graphics card right here in front of you is for high-end processing, uh, such as in real-time visual effects, like the one used in The Mandalorian. If you've ever seen that before, actually, let me bring that up on your screen right now so you would be familiarized with the Mandalorian set. They are very likely using Quadro graphics cards in their sets. I should probably hurry up because we're just still going to have a demonstration later. But um, here is the set of, where is it? Mandalorian. All right. If you've ever watched the Mandalorian, I'm sure you would be very interested in these photos because they're using a real-time LED set that actually reflects light onto them so they wouldn't have to edit any of this very complicated lighting onto their subjects like the Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal. So that's it for that. More conventional graphics cards that you might be using is the GTX line of graphics cards, like the 1080 Ti, the 2080 Super, or maybe lower end GPUs like the 760. And the fastest that we currently have is the 3080 by NVIDIA. But your Intel CPUs are actually already have integrated graphics cards. Now, GPUs are distinct from graphics cards, but that's a distinction that will take up too much of our time. So let us proceed. So GPUs are technically little processors that compose graphics cards. Graphics cards are entire parts or peripherals of our computers. I forgot to discuss some of these other peripherals. Of course, you would need a keyboard, a mouse, and maybe a graphics tablet. I personally use a something similar to this mouse right here that has macros, and you could couple that with hotkeys so you would automate your life with and make it everything easier. You could also use graphics tablets. There are actually very cheap graphics tablets out there. At the price of probably less than 2,000, you'll already have one, but it's not very nice. But it will do the job for sure. So that's good for drawing and sculpting in 3D. Now let's have some examples. This right here is an example of tween animation.
For pledging loyalty to the lords. The lords were also vassals to more important lords, with the most important of all being the king. Below the
there are lots of animations right here in the Crash
forces the
Course.
status quo. There's little freedom and absolutely no social mobility. Peasants could never work their way up so in contemporary Afghanistan, but instead of being in Arabia. That was really important to the
Right. So we just noticed a transition right there, which is sometimes called something else in broadcasting, actually. It's a stinger in broadcasting. That's the term you use in broadcasting, stinger. Now, for 3D graphics, just like I mentioned earlier, Avatar is an
I know one thing. Wherever we go, this family.
Okay, so believe it or not, these are actually three-dimensionally generated imagery. And they are attached to people with little dots on them, if you've ever seen those costumes, that track their movement. And that is called motion capture. It is all now 3D graphics is also used for architectural visualization. What does that mean?
Look at this mesh. It's actually quite complicated. So let me just jump to clay mode, and you'll
already we can see him using the program 3ds Max, which is used for architectural visualization. Finally, he used Corona 5 apparently for rendering his final images. And you could also be employed actually in the line of architecture if you graduated with architecture or not, because these people also employ people with the skills to operate these programs, which are fairly complicated. So there is a bar for entry in this career. So you end up with this kind of image, which is really nice. Actually, I've made one myself. Let me present that right up on screen right now. There's someone trying to join. Let me just accept him. Okay, so check out this render that I fairly recently made. Right there. So it's very noisy actually. So it actually takes a lot more time to get rid of that noise. Here's another version of that render. So that's pretty nice. I added some foliage. That's called foliage in architecture and visualization. Whatever is green, like plants or trees right here, that's called foliage there. And this is the architecture itself. And it has textures, different sorts of things that have different reflectivities and such. But that's too much for that. Let's continue our presentation. My audience window. All right. And let's proceed to some examples of my own. In my YouTube channel, you would see this video right here that I actually collaborated with some of our classmates for Panitikang Filipino. It was last semester or so, I think.
Ang aming napanood at libro neto na
So as you can see, there is a photo that I personally edited, and it is integrated into a video. So you could actually combine these 2D and photography and video editing. So that's you come up with a pretty nice output like this.
ng mga tauhan at mga pangyayari sa pelikulang
And then you could animate them together. Let me just admit another one. Okay, so you could animate that with tween animation with keyframes.
ito ay tinatawag
You could also do that in Adobe
o
Premiere.
staff of Hermes sa Ingles.
So if you just notice that, I zoomed in a little bit, and then
Nakaw na
that was presented as an animation. So here are my group mates back then. Anyway, actually, let me just show something else in that video. I actually animated a 2D image in 3D. So if you don't know what that means, here it is. So that's what it means to animate a 2D image in 3D. So you can do that in programs such as After Effects, among others. Anyway, let's proceed to drones, drone photography. And if you guys don't mind, I will be demonstrating a little bit over time, but we still have 7 minutes in our time frame. Here's some drone footage. And that right there, what you noticed is cutting to the beats. So that's typically used in editing, because if you cut to the beat, the audience will be drawn into the images you're showing, because it makes it feel very visceral and very enticing. Oops, there I am. Okay, so let me show you another example. All right, so in the intro, if you noticed, right there. So I use the alpha map of some 2D images and then use that as a mask to show the background video. That's a pretty nice technique that you could also use. That's also used in this video actually. And there's also something called Foley artists. Now, Foley is an art to create background noise that actually isn't there. So, if you've seen this video and heard the birds in the background, that actually isn't there because I just added that onto the video. So, also the waves, the sound of the waves, the ambient sounds like the sea, the birds, and the footsteps were artificially added into the video because it looks nicer and um, seems nicer altogether. So there's a bunch of that footage, and I also employed a technique called masking right on the end of this video. There, so as you can see, it was animated from being invisible into visible. I'll try to demonstrate that later with our very limited time, but here's an example of user interfaces, just like we mentioned earlier. Not that, that is an intro for my channel. But that is an example of 2D animation. Tween animation, to be exact. And frame by frame animation is very rarely used in these types of videos anyway. It was used by Pixar, for example, in the early days of animating Mickey Mouse, if you've ever seen those old footage. Now this is an example of a user interface that employs computer graphics.
ASP.NET application or a web form that is a simple SPA.
And you could also use animations that interact with people, and that's known as human-computer interaction.
This particular example focuses on the the principle of CRUD. Otherwise, we would encounter
As you can see, whenever I hover over that, it is transposed a little bit. Next is yet another video from my channel, which is a cinematic kind of short film. I use this intro quite a lot. Not that one anymore. Yeah. Okay, so just to discuss a little bit about that, um, that cut right there is known as a match cut because it matches the movement of the subject in both of those clips. But there are lots of cuts, namely the match cut, the smash cut, the J cut, the L cut, and lots of other cuts actually, which is quite complicated for the purpose of this discussion. Finally, is a 3D animation that I actually made, and this is known as a title card, which is used for cold opens. Whenever you see a news program, for example, show a animation in the beginning while they're still not reporting any of the news, that is a cold open. So I actually misspelled breakdown here, but yeah, don't mind that. So there were tons of layers. That's what you technically call them in compositing. This is also known as compositing, by the way, which is similar to what you do in Foundry Nuke. All right. So you could watch all of this. And just for the purpose of discussion, this is an ending card, which may be used to match the cards that you see in the end of YouTube videos. And if you noticed, I actually linked the beats of the music into the motion of these titles. Now we've just reached the 7 p.m. mark of our discussion, but I'll be continuing a little bit more for the people who are interested with the demonstration. But if you're going to be busy in the next couple of minutes, it is officially the end of our presentation. Thank you very much to all of you who listened, but I'll continue for now into the demonstration. All right. Yes, thank you for those who interacted, Kuya John and Brother Jordan. All right, so I actually prepared a. Okay, thank you, Miss Marianne. Okay, so let's bring up our Adobe Premiere Pro project. Let me just start up the program. Thank you, Kuya John. I like your work, by the way. Okay, so I'm currently trying to open the program. Let me present the screen. So just so you know, I'm not lying. I am actually trying to open the program. It's pretty slow, so bear with me. Tons and tons of them. Let me just close some of these other, oops, some of these other things. Let me open it this way instead. All right. So first of all, this is a this is actually a paid program, but I think you could use a trial version for 30 days, and you could practice with it a little bit. And you just press open project because I already created a project. Otherwise, you create new project and click it just like so. Let me switch to window view. Share a window. Where is my window? All right, there it is. There is my timeline. If you could actually see it. For some reason, the video isn't showing on your end. Could you see the video right over here?
Who are you? We have nothing here.
That is very peculiar. Let me try to fix that. Maybe if I just show my entire screen instead, it would work. Yeah, it does seem to work when I show my entire screen, but not the window itself for some reason. I actually did not know that. So here is your very well. In the beginning, it's quite overwhelming, but as you go on, you would get used to the interface. Let me know if you could hear this.
Go pagmama
Yeah, was I sharing my audio? Yes, thank you. By the way, for that compliment, that voice was mixed with the actual singer's voice, so that was a little bit cheating. But we'll notice my voice a little bit more in depth later. So, brother Jordan here wants to hear my own voice. So to do that, we're already proceeding into the tutorial. You just click on this S button, and that will put the audio in solo.
na lang ng iwan.
There's my voice right there. Thank you, Kuya John. Actually, yeah, I've befriended some of our classmates here that I've just noticed actually create their own instrumentals, which is very nice. I hope we can do some collaborations later in the future. Anyway, here is your workspaces. Typically, you just begin with the assembly workspace. A workspace is basically something that arranges your windows. So here is your timeline. I'm going to be speeding through this because it's going to take a lot of time if we discuss every single detail about it. Okay, so here is your bin. I've already added all of my clips here in order. But to do that, you just drag here and then add it onto the timeline, just like here. And then you'll be able to play it. But it's muted, so let me unmute that. Okay, so if you noticed, it's very noisy. Let's fix that first and foremost. So we're already editing audio. Put this on solo. Shift click on the eye. Click on one of the footage or clips, and then you would also isolate the video. Okay, so I'm already done with assembling. So let's go to the editing workflow. And then I'm going to open the essential sound tab. And then you go put that onto the right, make the preview a little bit larger. And then you'll be able to see this dialog tab. Click repair. And then solo that. Let's also close the video just for the purpose of this thing. Now you hold Alt and then scroll wherever you want, and then Control scroll if you want to navigate up and down, and then hold here Alt scroll, and then you'd be able to maximize the video or the audio clip, and then look for some noise. Actually, there isn't much noise on this particular clip, so let's leave that alone. What's this one? Oh, so that's my reference audio clip. Now this is going to be very noisy. Okay, so if you just notice, that's a very noisy clip. One of the easiest ways to fix that is with the dialogue option in the repair section of Essential Sound in Premiere Pro, but you could also use Adobe Audition. Let's try this one first. I'm going to drag this all the way to the left and then play the timeline.
Wala.
Okay, so stop singing first. Gradually increase it until you don't hear the noise anymore. And you could actually still hear my saliva going and my tongue and all of those nuances because it's a very sensitive mic. By the way, you could use any mic like your phone. That's pretty decent already. And if we turn off this filter, you could hear that. Turn it on. Barely anything.
Wala nang dating pagtingin.
All right, so let's solo this other track.
Nang da.
Okay, so that's actually just the noisy version of this one. So let's delete that one. You right-click, click unlink rather. Press delete on your keyboard. Unmute this one, and then solo the other one. Okay, so there is a lot of noise on this clip as well. I wish I'm not boring you because video editing is indeed a very tedious process. So you just go back to the Essential Sound with that highlighted. Click Reduce Noise, pull it all the way to the left, and then play it. Gradually increase it until the noise disappears, just like magic. Okay, so if you use this too much, the sound will actually become a little bit robotic. So let's reduce it a little bit. So that kind of sounds decent. Okay, so let's try to play some of these clips simultaneously. To view your entire timeline, just press /, and then you'll see everything. Let's shift click on the eyes so we could actually see some footage. Drag that. And these are all synchronized, so I could freely cut any of these, and these will be nicely transitioning into each other. But I should be sure to unlink all of them because that will also cut the audio files. So press C to use the razor tool. Click anywhere on the clip. Just click on one of the clips you want to delete and press Ctrl X. Now, if your timeline isn't running very smoothly, you could reduce the preview resolution, which is right here. So I'm viewing now in 1/4 resolution, if everybody is still with me. All right, so we still have 36 people with us, actually. Now, for some reason, it's not playing. Sometimes it's very buggy, which Adobe Premiere is very notorious for, actually. There it is. Now it's moving. Okay, so I don't want to see my own facial expressions, so click on this clip, press Shift and then 5 on your keyboard. That will bring up the effects control section here, which will actually give you all of the controls for your clip. You could scale it, move it left and right, rotate it actually. Woo. Yeah, all right. And then you could reset it with this button right on the right. Okay, so let's already employ some pretty advanced techniques. This is called masking right here. Now, feather is essentially how smooth that is. You could click on the mask, and then you would end up with this circular video, just like that. And then you could click on the motion effect, drag on the actual clip, and then adjust this just so um, it doesn't cut the video, or it doesn't reach the edges of the video, because that will give us a circular image. All right. Just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be putting my vocals video right on the corner, but that's not uh, probably not the best way to go about it. Anyway, now we're going to use the green screen. So I've already set up a green screen on the back of my video. So just search Ultra Key on your effects panel, and if you can see that, if I'm not mistaken, you press Shift 7. Right. My memory is not failing me. You press Shift 7 and then you bring up the effects panel. In the effects panel, just click and drag the Ultra Key onto your clip, or actually you could also click and drag it and bring it all the way here in the effects controls. Press on Ultra Key, the key color, just click on this eyedropper tool, and then go into your video and click somewhere green. And now green is the farthest color from our skin. That was why we have green screens. That's a little trivia for you. So you could adjust all of these knobs to fine tune the masking. You could also shift click on here and then isolate the video. Zoom it a little bit in. Just like that. I'm going to increase the effect on the shadows a little bit, but that will affect my hair a little bit more, because the shadows target the black areas. So we're just going to have to stick with that. And if you had more time, you could fine tune this a little bit more, but that looks good enough to me, because it will take quite a lot of time to fine tune that. Let's also try and Ultra Key this one. You see, we're already creating transparency. So my green screen setup apparently isn't very clean because of how crumpled it is, unfortunately. But right, that's why you have to set up your green screen in a plain manner. For the purpose of this video, we're not going to apply the green screen effect on this one because it's too dirty, unlike this other one, which is fairly nice and fairly plain. Alright, for some reason I'm seeing something else. Alright, so that was actually the sound from the side view. Let me mute this one. Okay, that looks good enough to me. And you could actually also mask this part out. If you notice, it doesn't capture the entirety of the video. So let's go to the vocals clip, enter another mask key. Actually, that wasn't vocals clip, that was the rhythm clip. My bad. So click on the rhythm clip, click on opacity, and then this little free draw Bezier curve. And then you can shift and then click on the grab accent button. Let me press V first, and then click on the preview. Press shift grab accent right after you get this masking tool right here, just like that. So I could also change the zooming so we could get a more precise view at this thing. Now my guitar is going to be moving quite a lot throughout the video, but it doesn't matter because that's a very small part of the video. But for high production uh, uh, budgets or creations, that's you could probably fine tune that a little bit more, or create or use an entire green screen covering your entire background. So just click on inverted if I am not. Let me just check first. Okay, so it's not working yet. Let me delete. No, that doesn't work. I'm actually not sure what happened here. So let's try to troubleshoot this. Isolate the video. Delete one of the masks. And for some reason that's alright. So you just click on inverted and that will delete that entire part right there. If you wanted, actually, you could also delete this part to the left. Just click the same tool. Yeah, you could nest it actually, and then nesting fixes a lot of problems. If you nest it and then apply the same effect here, it will delete that part. Just click on inverted, but it doesn't look entirely keyed yet. So there is a blue part here which we can use as a separate ultra keying reference. Just put the ultra key on the nested sequence and then color key on that blue one. There we go. So even though I didn't have a very clean background, which I used to have in some of my other videos, I managed to create this key right there. So you could use the alpha channel to fine-tune the video. But that looks good enough to me for the purpose of this video. Ideally, you would have a black and white completely separated video, but for now, let's just stick with this one. Okay, so let's have some interesting cuts here. And then mute the original singer and put my voice into it.
Tingin sa wana.
Okay, so just click on one of the audio files, press G to adjust the gain. I'm going to reduce the audio level of my vocals to -6. Normalize it to -6 decibels.
Sa aking lambing.
And that actually evens it out. Because if you have vocals, the general rule of thumb is to put it in -6 decibels. Don't ask why I know that, because that took a ton of work to actually research about. You just continue to research about it online and you'll eventually find some sort of tutorial online.
Ang dahilan, bakit bigla na lang nang iwan?
I think my voice is too dominant, so I'm going to decrease it by a little bit. 2 decibels.
Di na alam ang gagawin upang ika'y magbalik sa
Okay, so another effect that you can use, perhaps you have been hearing some wrong notes in my vocals because I'm not a professional singer by any means. So let's try to edit clip in Adobe Audition right after right clicking on it. So it will render and replace your audio file. It will open Adobe Audition if you have that program. Um, don't mind that program. This is the one that we want to use. Okay, so this is an entirely different program for audio, which might not be very relevant to our topic, which is computer graphics, but inevitably you're going to have to deal with audio just as you deal with video. Whenever you deal with video, there's going to be audio. So we've also gotten rid of the noise here. Not very much left, but let's try to eliminate that remaining one. Press Shift P, that will capture it as a noise. Control Shift P to eliminate that noise. By the way, I pressed Control A before that to select everything. And then just fine tune this and apply it. So you would reduce the noise completely. As you can see in the audio levels down here, there is completely no noise anymore.
wala nang da
Okay, so let me get rid of that horrible voice by adding some modulation. That's what we want. So you've heard of audio mixers using something called auto-tune, and we could also actually do that in this program called Adobe Audition with the effects somewhere here. Let me just try to find it first. I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. Automatic pitch correction. There it is. So, first of all, just look for the key of your song if you're singing, and then select whether it's major or minor. And guitar players will know this if there are any guitar players in our Google Meet chat. Let me check if I'm still in our Google Meet chat. Thankfully, I am. We have other examples. Chat here. From Cyrus. Cyrus says, I think Adobe Premiere offers more features than pero will come back if merong vocal customization such as synthesizers, reverb, auto-tune, etc. Right, I completely agree. But some people actually say that DaVinci Resolve is more stable than Adobe Premiere because Adobe Premiere is notorious for crashing all of the time. But in my opinion, Adobe Premiere is pretty good program until now, especially if you've gained a lot of experience with it. It won't be very comfortable to switch. So the key of this song anyway is G major. So you just check what the differences will be. And this is the correction level.
wala nang da
Okay, so the sensitivity is a little bit too high. Let's increase the attack, lower the sensitivity.
wala nang da
Okay,
sawa na ba
okay, let me just demonstrate what happens if you fully blast this. You will sound completely robotic.
pagtingin
I'm going to be correct. That side effect is going to be very noticeable.
sawa
That's why we fine tune this right there. Just enough.
na ba sa aking
That's right.
lambing wala
You're good.
nang dating pag ka namang dahilan.
I think that's good enough. Can't really do much about that because you'll have to have a decent audio to begin with, audio file. We could also use the graphic equalizer to emphasize some of the frequencies on the audio. We're getting out of track here because our original the topic was computer graphics, but just as I said, you'll inevitably have to deal with audio sometime in the future if you're dealing with computer graphics. So just put that in this hump shape, just like that, and that should emphasize your voice.
Nang dating pagtingin.
So that this is the base of your voice. Is that great?
Sawa na ba sa aking lambing?
There it is. So that's here is without the effect.
Ting pagtingin.
Here is with the effect.
Ting pagtingin.
So it sounds like it was recorded from studio, which is not true by any means because I recorded that right in our living room. So let's close that. Don't forget to apply it with this button right on the left, and then Control S to save, and Alt F4 to close the program. And that should automatically sync with this clip right here. Let's try to solo that.
Sawa na bago.
Okay, let's try to play that along with other audio.
Pagmamahal sa'yo.
Okay, so another thing that you could do is search for some video or images that could be pretty decent as a background. Could anyone suggest a background for our video? I think we could use the background of Wish, actually. That would be pretty nice. Yeah, Music Lounge. This is a Music Lounge. That would be pretty funny, actually. Let's lounge. That doesn't work. Let's say background. Background. Somebody must have created a background by this point. Perfect. So to get the full resolution image, right click on open in new tab, click and save image as or copy image. I'm going to save the image. I'm going to get the directory of this thing right here. Leave this computer.prproj, which is the file extension of projects. Copy the path, open it right here, save it here. Let's say this is our Wish BG. Always remember to name your files, but as you can see, it is a WebP file which will not work with Premiere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot. Would ideally do if you end up with a WebP file. So let's go to the directory again, save it with the same file name I mentioned before, and now it's going to be saved as a portable network graphics image. Right. So we could go back to our bin, go to my images bin, press Ctrl I to import, and then import any of the images that you want. I'm going to go back to the same directory and import the image. Press backward slash # highlight the all of it. Actually, you could also just press letter A, which is cut to select everything to the right or everything to the left. Now I'm going to deselect this one because I want this image right below everything else. And that gives us that. And I actually inverted it, so let me fix it real quick. That gives us that. Which isn't a very clean key, but it works just fine. Let's increase the. Actually, that's unbearably dirty, so let's try to fix that ultra key. Shadow. Take the alpha matte. What is this affecting? Right, it's on the blue thing. Composites. It's working on that white thing. Reduce the highlight. Shadows. Change the pedestal. Perfect. I mean for the small part. For the rest of the parts there, we're going to fix that later. So this one on my elbow is already pretty clean. Let's go into the nested clip just by double clicking on that green clip and then click on here and try to find the key we used. Click the eyedropper tool and resample. Let's use the alpha channel. We try and mend our very dirty green screen. I swear I have made cleaner green screens before. It's just that for this video it wasn't very clean. But anyway, there are lots of workarounds for that. We could just literally expand this mask and we won't need a clean green screen at all. Let's go to the back to the original. Oops. Don't forget to turn off the alpha channel preview and go to the composite preview. And we could also mask back my face, I think. I think we can do that. My hair. But this is incredibly detailed for the purpose of the demonstration. I'm just trying to get it as clean as possible. Now, on second thought, just keep pressing Control Z to undo anything that you don't want. Control Shift Z to redo. And I could actually double click on here to use another Ultra key specifically for this other one. Turn off that other one first. Specifically for my hair, I could create an Ultra key. And then you could mask that Ultra key. Press Shift and drag, just like that. So you round your hair. Excellent. Wait a second. Let me copy this background just to check whether it's worked already. I think you're supposed to click inverted here somewhere. No. I remember now. You're supposed to make another mask right here. And click invert on that one. So you would isolate the hair. And these two are supposed to line up. And this is supposed to be turned on. Nice. So that's basically what you're supposed to do when you want your hair clean on a video that is ultra keyed. That's relatively clean. You could still do some fine tuning with that, but that's pretty good for now.
Nang iwan.
Okay, so also, if you notice, this is a very long video. I'm not going to try to um, export the entire thing because that's going to take too long. We still have 29 people here. Thanks, Francis, for listening. Actually, I'm pretty sure I intro as well, so let me try to find that. No, that's the solo. This is the rhythm. This is also the song rhythm. Weirdly enough, I think I did not import the intro into the well, anyway, I'm going to let's just export some of these instead. Okay, so I don't want my vocals to enter very soon. So I'm going to drag on the edge of that, press S so the snapping would turn off. Okay, so I clapped somewhere here, so let me cut that as well. That was for synchronizing. Okay, so you could press C and then hold shift so you would cut the entirety of this thing. Select all these, press D so you would select everything from top to bottom. And then you could also add an adjustment layer. Let's click adjustment layer, put that there, press S again so the snapping would turn on. Control D so you would apply the cross dissolve effect by default. Okay, so I want the side view to show up somewhere here. So I'm going to extend this thing. Wait, for some reason that's not lining up. Okay, so instead of the side view, let's try and open up something else. The vocals, for example. Say we wanted to put this on full screen. So cut this and that won't affect the other part. and press Shift F5 just or Shift 5 just as we've always done. Delete the opacity mask and then press on all of these, and that will revert it to the original position it was originally. Right. Okay, so for example, we wanted a text layer here. Just press T and then text, and just say Magbalik cover St. John Bosco IAS computer graphics demonstration or demo, and then you bring up essential graphics this time on the window menu, and then just combine these things because they take up too much space. Press on edit, go back here. I'm going to choose Roboto if I actually have that. If not, I'll use Gotham. Those are my favorite fonts. Press on center, change the attributes accordingly. And then you could also change the size overall. Alright, you could center that again. Press Shift 7, enter drop shadow, and then drag that onto the clip in the timeline. Shift 5 to manipulate the shadow. Opacity, direction. Direction is nice. I would like to increase the distance and the opacity. You could use the arrow keys. We are approaching the end of this presentation, I swear. We're going to render some part of it, not the entirety. Let's say we want to increase the opacity. Softness as well. Just like that. Let's try to play that. And then press Ctrl D to have some transition there. Okay, so I don't want this particular audio clip here, so let's delete that. Also Control D here, so there would be a transition there.
Wala nang dating pagtingin. Sawa na ba sa aking lambing?
Change the position of these clips.
Wala ka namang dahilan. Bakit bigla
I think this other clip isn't very synchronized, but let's use what we can.
na lang ng iwan?
Okay, so let's just cut right here. Press C, then Shift, and then click. And just to save this, I'm going to press Control N to make a new sequence called sequence 2, whatever. And then I'm going to copy everything I want onto this next sequence. So we would retain both of these. Also, I want the solo. Okay, let's have the solo. Copy this part, paste it right here. Okay, so we don't have the right settings here. So press on sequence here, sequence settings. I'm going to change it to 1280 by 720. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, you could also press on the brackets keys on your keyboard to increase or decrease the preview speed. Or was it the open and close angle brackets? No, it was the JKL. The keys on your keyboard, sorry.
Wala na dating pagtingin. Sawa na ba sa aking lambing? Wala ka namang dahilan. Bakit bigla?
I want to shorten that side view here.
Bakit bigla ka lang ng iwan?
Okay, so we could also nest all of these audio clips. Nest. Oh, for some reason we can't. I'm not sure why, but we could also just highlight all of them. Click on the side, press Ctrl D or Shift D, and that will give us a constant gain transition out. If you notice that, there's a natural transition out. And then we can copy the adjustment layer here. Press on V5, paste that there. Delete the cross dissolve, and then put it right over there to the right. And that gives you that clean transition out. And just to be sure, let's add the black video toward the end. All right. So press A. Okay, from here on out, I'm not going to call out everything that I do just to increase my working speed. Sorry about that. Okay, for this video, I want to mute the backing track. Okay, some videos here or audio clips are not lining up, so I have to identify them. This is the solo track. I could actually get rid of this instead. Now let's try to change some of the views. Okay, this called tween animation. We could also highlight all of them and then right click temporal interpolation. You can click Bezier or Auto Bezier. I'm going to click Bezier. I'm going to increase the time that plays out. Let's play that back. Let's show some of the other footage. I almost forgot to unlink them all. So highlight them all, click on unlink. Could also show them all. If you really wanted to be precise, you could use the rulers. But I'm not going to do that for this video. Okay, so finally we could actually export this video after all that work. And if I'm to be frank, this is far from done. But just to show you how to export a video in Adobe Premiere Pro 2022, you just press Control M, and then you name your sequence. Let's say this is the demo video. Press on the directory you want to save it in. I want to save it in that folder. Press on video, more, and then go to the target bitrate, so you could actually monitor the amount of data uh, you're going to consume. So about 3 is fine. There's not going to be any noticeable uh, decreases in quality, but if you start approaching 0, that's going to make it more pixelated. So let's try to export that. You could also use a media encoder. Since this is a fairly short video with minimal effects. This is not going to take a lot of time if you have a decent graphics card and CPU, because this is CPU intensive. If you actually press Control Shift Escape, you would notice the performance, and it's taking a lot more of my CPU than my GPU. If actually it's taking the GPU for the visual effects, which is likely just the ultra key that we applied earlier, but it's more so going to be the CPU intensive. Also, you're going to need a lot of random access memory so it wouldn't lag so much. Let's see our finished product.
Wish 107.
Wala nang dating pagtingin. Sawa na ba sa aking lambing? Wala ka namang dahilan. Bakit bigla na lang nang iwan?
Okay, thank you very much. That ends our presentation for today. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.